I got 7 o'clock. So welcome to the webinar. This is Wednesday Wind Down with Dan and Friends, the webinar and YouTube show for outdoor enthusiasts. I've been saying frustrated hikers, but I'm a little less frustrated because I've been out in the trail and getting a little more chance to do it. But the idea is that I like to go out and go hiking and backpacking, and I like to drink beer. So it's harder to do that. We're doing the show. So I'm Dan Conger. I'm the host tonight. Tonight, I'm actually drinking some Maker's Mark, so I'm not drinking a beer. So. And with us tonight is my little brother. Mike, would you introduce yourself?
I'm the brother. I'm Mike Conger, and I'm drinking a cold iced tea.
Wonderful, wonderful. So a couple weeks ago, I was talking with I think it was with Kit Davis, and all of a sudden I just had this brainstorm of a concept, and we were talking about the horror stories that hikers and backpackers tell around the campfire, right? And they say, there I was, edge of the cliff, and I thought I was going to die. Did you die? No, I didn't. I'm still here. So those stories are really valuable, especially when you have somebody that's new to spending time in the outdoors. So I came up with this idea of a webinar on when shit goes wrong. And that's tonight's episode. Shit goes wrong, but what are the lessons learned, right? So it's not just going to be horror stories. It wants to be the things that we took away from it. So Mike has a story and I have a story, and we'll share them. But most importantly, we'll share what we learned and what we took away from it. So tonight we've got two stories. I want to give enough time to it. In the future, I'll have other people on, and we'll probably do this maybe once a month and bring it on. So Mike, I got to tell you, Mike's story. Mike's story is about me. Okay.
Yeah.
And I needed to get this out of the way because I knew all my hiking friends were going to nail me on this. It's like, what about you? So, Mike, please.
Yeah.
Please
I'll give you the details.
Yes, the big hairy details.
So we were hiking as a group of 5, and so Dan, me, Sandra, Kelly, and Rich, and we were down at we were in the Sierras. We were at Lake Barney, and we were coming up. We were making our way to Peeler Lake, and we were coming up. And you know, the way we hike is we always spread out. Everyone hikes their own hike at their own pace, but we try to be safe. And at all junctions and stream crossings, we'll wait up. So we don't have to regroup as 5, but at least the people behind need to meet up with somebody. So we had gotten to a junction. We're still, 3 miles, 4 miles away from Peeler Lake. Mm-hmm. And Dan was waiting for me, and the others had just taken off. So I was kicking back with Dan for a little bit. We were talking to another hiker we had met down at Barney Lake. And then Dan tells me he's taken off, and he said, hey, make sure you stay to the right at this junction. It's like, okay, great. So I kind of watch him head off as I start chit-chatting with the hiker we had just met.
Right, the other guy.
And I had waited just about 5 minutes. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I forgot there was the other person at the junction. I don't know that they were necessarily distracting, but I do remember chatting with them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't really watch you. So when I got, and the junction itself was, 20 yards from where we were kicking back.
I won't. Don't give away the secret yet.
And so I got up there, and so 5 minutes later, I take off. I was okay, I'm feeling good. And then I said, oh, shoot. What? Oh, okay. He said, stay to the right. So I'm just kind of looking. I'm like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. So I head to the right and hiking along.
So as Mike tries to get back on, as we were trying to connect his Wi-Fi to.
How about that?
Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's good. Your audio, your video.
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Okay. So you're saying that you're hiking along.
Yeah,
a couple miles out.
Should be about 5 minutes behind you. And, so I'm going for, an hour at least. And, and I don't expect, I'm the slower one, so I didn't expect to see anyone. And finally get up to a kind of where I could just start to see Peeler Lake, and I see Rich, and Rich is hanging out, and I said, "Oh, hey," and he's like, I said, "How long you been here?" And he lets me know, and I said, "Oh, okay, where's Dan?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't see him," and he was kind of off, kind of in a little bit of an alcove, kind of like a little bit clearing. It's like, "Oh, do you think he went past you?" And he's like, "I don't think so, but could have." And so, okay. So we're like, well, let's get to the other side of the lake. So just about 5 minutes it took to get on this little path, and we got over to our clearing, and that's when we see Sandra and Kelly, and we like, "Hey, Dan's here," and no, Dan's not here.
So in the movies,
and then that was the oh shit.
In the right, the oh shit, yeah. That's when Mike realized that shit went seriously wrong. Okay, so let's establish what happened, right? We were hiking along, came to a junction, we met at the junction. I left, you left, we got in, you get into camp, and I'm not there. And I was ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so technically I'm lost. Whether I realize it or not, I am lost. I am lost to four people. The other four people on my trip, I am lost. I may know exactly where I am, but as far as they're concerned, I'm lost, and that's lost. Well, that's kind of, oh shit, it's kind of serious. So you'll tell us what you actually did, but let's talk about a couple of things that you might do in that. So why don't you throw out one idea that you might do in a case like that?
Well, I can only think of what I really did do. Well, you might backtrack,
Okay,
you might,
so that's
you
one.
might backtrack, and
yeah. So
you would first ask yourself, did we go the right way? But we were four people, and if I was one person, I would definitely be thinking, did I take the wrong turn?
So that's a valid question. Is, am I lost or is he lost? And this would be probably
another thing.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I would definitely do is pull out a map and start thinking like, okay, if I think that you're the one who's lost, where might you have gone? That would make sense, right?
Right.
In my mind, I would also think of like, was there anything sketchy? Was there anything as we were hiking along, was there anything that would have thrown you off? Like like, hey, we were at there was a trail. I wasn't sure exactly which way to go,
right.
But I figured it out. Maybe he didn't figure it out. So I would kind of be thinking of those things. Definitely a map, and depending on how far, but you might backtrack.
So here's a couple of other things that a person could do. Is everybody could go back and look. Some people could go back and look. You could run around and just scream. You could signal for help. You could, if you have a PLB or a personal locator, you could do that and say, help, 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 somebody's lost. I'd say I don't particularly like any of those ideas that I just threw out, but they're things that people could do. The other one is you could set up your tent and see what happens in the morning. That I would say 9 times out of 10, that's a bad idea as well. But I
thought of another thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Definitely, if you're seeing other hikers, start asking around.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So
if somebody's going the other way, you could ask them, hey, or if they're coming in, you could ask them if they saw them.
Okay. So why don't you tell us what actually happened? Well, wait, and you know what?
Well,
let me tell you what I did, what the lost party did. So
I think I should tell a little detail before you tell that. Is that cool?
Okay, fair enough.
Trust me on this one. So as it turns out, when Dan was waiting for me when he left, when you got to the junction, he said, "Stay to your right." I saw three paths. One, stay to the right. One that looked like it's the middle, and then a little bit of a use trail. And I thought, wait, is the use trail the left one? And I should go to the right one? And I thought, no, I'll stay to the right. Okay, well, I tried to offer that to the group as, well, maybe that's what he did. Maybe he, saw that little use trail and got the second one. But everyone in the group, knowing how experienced Dan was, said, no. He's too smart. He would never do that, which caused me to worry my bleep off. Because I thought, okay, well, if Dan would never do that, then the only other option is he's injured. Okay, so now you can say what you did do.
So when you just kind of illustrated some major assumptions, right? Because if you start making these assumptions like, well, if there's no way it could be this, no way it could be this, they got to be dead. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they're dead. Or a bear's eating on them right now, right? So this is what I actually did. I came exactly as Mike saw it. I knew I was looking at the map and I knew we were going to take the right-hand junction. I did not pay attention to where Rich was when I came to the junction. He was actually on the trail, which was the left fork. He was, because there wasn't a place on the true right-hand fork. I saw that use trail. I said, I want to stay right. Did not see or pay attention to the true trail that made a hard right backwards and then climbed and went out on this trail. And I just went. I'm like, I remember thinking, this is cool. This wasn't nearly as hard as the map made it look. Because I've only climbed 100 feet instead of 300 feet. Yeah, that definitely made it easier. And as I'm going along, I'm like, that's odd. I should be seeing Mike before too long. And I didn't see him. I'm like, well, I'm going to go a little further. I want to confirm where I am. And I started getting this sinking suspicion that I was not in the right place. And I remember thinking, I'm glad you didn't follow me, because this is going to suck really quick. Came up over the rise, and I see, instead of a big giant Peeler Lake, I see a little tiny pond. And here I've got a map I can show you real quick where I was. So here's the junction we were talking about, and instead of going to the big ass Peeler Lake, I made it to this first little pond of Robinson Lake. Got up to that pond, and as soon as I saw that pond, I thought, I done screwed up. So I was pretty confident where I was. So one of the things you talked about was a map. So instead of turning around and heading back, instead of pushing on, I took up my pack. First thing I did was had a drink of water and had a snack. I'm putting my feet on the ground, and I'm stopping. Next thing I did was I busted out my map, and I got a bearing off of a great peak and confirmed, yeah, 1,000%, I am at that first small lake of Robinson Lake. Sucks to be me. So now I have a mile to go back, and I have to go downhill, and then I have to pay back that 300 feet that I thought I was getting away with, and saw the big lake, and of course realized where I was. So that put me, maybe an hour and a half behind everybody else. So
at least, yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm coming down into the lake, I see Sandra and Kelly starting to come up the trail. So I think they were only about 10 minutes outside of camp. So I was really close. Yeah. And I was like, where the hell you been, and all that sort of thing. So Mike, why don't you describe real briefly, because I'm gonna move on to my story real briefly, what you guys actually did when you realized that I was lost.
Yeah. So once we got into actual camp, so now it's the four of us. We established he's not there. And I was kind of thinking, there's a helpless feeling, like I wanted to be involved in the search and rescue, but I was actually probably the most tired of everybody, because I had just finished hiking, and I was slower. And so they everyone calmed me down and said, okay, Rich and Mike stay in camp, and Sandra and Kelly, they're gonna head out. And thinking they must have, had a light pack with definitely first aid, ready to go, and water and some food. Yeah, and they headed out, and we just waited
Right.
and kind of did and tried to stay calm, And actually, I did stay calm
Yeah.
till I see this clown coming down, and I'm pretty sure I was crying.
So here's some of the things that I took away from that one is that we're smart in that we regroup at junctions, but I've always liked the idea of moving 10, 20 feet onto the junction that you're going to be taking where you're going to take your break. And we didn't do
That's
that.
smart.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no mistaking that we're not going this way, we're going this way. And I think that was a mistake. The other mistake was I did not pay attention to the person before me. When Rich left the junction, I was looking someplace else. Right. And then
I did the same thing.
Right. So that was a mistake that we made. What we did right was as soon as you realized that I'm missing, you kind of made an assessment of what was going on. You gathered a picture of me. When did we last see him? Where did we last see him? So let's go back to that place where we last saw him. And you left some people in camp. So, okay.
Yeah. And I was checking out my iPhone, and I still have the notes of,
oh, that's right,
5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And so I still have that. And I guess I just wanted to really be sure. And I made sure that the people going out knew what those times were as well.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, good. So what's good is now I can continue on with the series. We've got the one where Dan was lost. It's out of the way, right? You could rib me all you want, but it's done. I've ripped that Band-Aid off. Thanks for helping with that Band-Aid, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. So my story goes back a couple of years. It was after I first completed the WBC, and it was probably the Wilderness Basic course out by the Sierra Club. And it was probably 2000, 2002, somewhere right in there. So it was a few years ago, at least a few years ago. How's that? And I remember I had an opportunity to go to Mount Whitney. I hadn't planned on it that summer at all. It was my first backpack post WBC backpacking class trip. Now, the folks that were going were with my wife's running group. So they could hike, but none of them were backpackers. And I'm recently out of the class. I had the most experience, which was like, really? I'm the most senior person here. So I kind of set up some training hikes, and the pinnacle of our training hike was going to be San Gorgonio, the highest peak in Southern California. And I want to say it's 11,500 feet is roughly the elevation of that. And it's a 16-mile hike. I figured if we can do that, we'll have no problem. Well, it won't be nearly as challenging to go to Mount Whitney as a backpack trip. And we were going to backpack a couple of days and then summit. So turns out, instead of the entire group going, there was only two of us, myself and one of my wife's running friends. So Helen and I are drive from San Diego up to San Bernardino to Vivian Creek Trail. And we didn't get quite as early a start as we thought, right? Because we left here at probably 5 or 6, and then 2.5 hours later we started. So we were probably on the trail at 7:30-ish. Realistically, we should have been on the trail at 5:30, but that's life. Okay, so we're hiking up, do pretty well. I got a little bit of altitude sickness, so I don't quite summit. Helen summits, and she comes back off the summit, picks me up. We're cruising down, and on San Gorgonio, there's these big ass steps as you come down, as you change grade. She misses one of the steps and blows out her ankle. Her ankle goes wonk, and it immediately starts swelling. Pretty serious. So here's the dun dun dun. Oh shit! Oh shit! We're 14 miles away from the trailhead, or no, it's 16. No, we're 6 miles away. So we're only 2 miles off the top. So we're almost halfway through the trip, and now she needs to come down, and she has apparently a sprained ankle. Oh shit! What are we gonna do? Okay.
What time of day is it then?
It was probably 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
It was slightly later in the afternoon. It could have been a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. But
time is going to play into this story. Absolutely. So, okay. So what are a couple of things you could do? First one is you could signal for help, right? So if you had a personal locator beacon or some other communication device, you could call for help. That's a possibility. And I figured if that was the case, Helen's getting a helicopter ride off the mountain. Okay, that's a possibility. What else do you think you could do, Mike? Any other ideas?
Well, if you're still assessing the injury, you would, take a break and do that and see, like, well, is 20 minutes, 30 minutes enough time to let you recoup? But with a sprained ankle that's swelling, I think you know already, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
You could put her over your shoulder, or help her out with your shoulder. Flag down. We're the kind of hikers that would help, and so you could find hikers that could help you.
Yeah. The other one is maybe walk out. So can assess, can they walk out? So So here's what we actually did. It is assessed that it was swelling, decided to leave her boot on, and I wanted to tape it, and she decided she didn't want it, and she didn't want to soak it. So that was her decision as the patient, which made sense. But she could walk very, very slow. So we've got a long distance to cover, and it's late afternoon. So this is going to put us back at the trailhead really crazy late. Now, we did run into other people along the trail, so we could have asked for help. But after a little while, we realized we are making trail. We are coming down the hill. It is painfully slow. And then the sunset. So whatever time of day it was. So now it's 6, 7 o'clock at night, and there's no light, and all we've got is headlamps. Here's some great preparation, and this is a very successful story because of the prep we put into. I had everything to stay out on the trail. So I had my 10 essentials, had extra clothing, had headlamps, I had some extra food. We could have spent the night out on the trail if we needed to. So that pressure was relieved, right? That was not something that I realized that it was like, oh crap, if we don't get off this mountain tonight, we're going to die. So that wasn't there. So we just took our time coming down, and it was painfully slow. And all I could really do was give her my trekking poles, because she didn't have any at the time, and just really light up each one of these steps, because each one of these steps would be now a 2-3 minute, shift your weight and come down these big stone steps. Yeah. So what I had told my wife, Jill, is I had said, this is where we're going to be. This is the trailhead, and this is when we'll be home. I think I said we'll be home at 8 o'clock in the evening. Well, that would mean getting off the mountain at 6 o'clock. Well, that was never going to happen. Dave asked a question, could I call to alert people? Actually, I had no cell coverage on the mountain, and I didn't have any kind of communication device at that time, not particularly available at that time. It would have been really nice to have a communicator and to say, we're okay, but we're going to be really late. Don't worry about us.
Had you thought about sending a message out with somebody, or was that not your priority?
No, didn't necessarily occur to me. That probably would have been nice, right? So I'd said we'd be back at 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, and we are not even at the truck yet. So we're still on the mountain at 8 o'clock. We get back to the truck at 9:30 p.m. Okay, well, 8 o'clock, 8:30 comes around, and I haven't been home, and I haven't called home. So my wife calls her husband. Have you heard anything? No. My wife then calls San Bernardino Search and Rescue, which I think is San Bernardino. Believe it's San Bernardino Sheriff's Department is their SAR. Talks to them, and they said, call us back at 10 o'clock. If you haven't heard from them at 10 o'clock, we'll start a search. We get back to the truck at 9:30. There's no cell coverage at the truck. And I know I need to call in because people are worried. Both parties are worried, her husband and my wife. So we book it down the road and get to Forest Falls and find a payphone of all things and drop a dime, call Jill. She calls Scott, lets everybody know we're okay. So we called before she called back for search and rescue. So another successful thing here is, besides us being prepared, was the person I left information, and the person at home, my anchor, if you will, actually did something when I didn't show up.
Yeah.
So my lesson that I really learned from this one was that itinerary that you leave behind is absolutely critical. I'm really good about that. Leaving my itinerary, I never go without an itinerary. Worse, if I change my itinerary, I'll make sure a text goes through to my wife. And then I'm also better about the agency that she should contact if I'm not overdue. And then we've also had the discussion that even on a day hike that I'm due back by lunchtime, don't worry about me until it gets dark. So that's our arrangement that we've made. So, and I do some solo hiking. So now I've started carrying a personal locator beacon. So she also knows that, shit really hits the fan. I've got that. So,
one thing that I was noticing, you got me on this stuff. Oh, okay.
You're still good.
On both stories is, you took care of yourself first. When you said you sat down, took off your pack, had some water, had a snack, because if you get worried and like, I'm okay, but I'm worried about the other people being worried. Well, you might hurry and you might be hungry, thirsty, weak, and then you could get injured. It sounds a little bit alarmist, but I think it's just a smart, take care of yourself first, and then the other people will be okay.
There's that concept of if you're lost, build a fire. And even if it's in the middle of summer, sometimes building a fire is like you're sitting still. And because you're sitting still, you're going to start thinking you're going to get out of that. I got to move location. Right. And then Kelly brings up a great idea is that, especially when you're backpacking, everything you need is in there. So when you're separated on the trail, and this has happened other times, and this might be a story that we bring up one time. You and I were separated from Rich and Sandra one time on the trail, and I didn't know when we were going to connect with each other. But I also knew that we had a complete kit, they had a complete kit, and they would be fine until the morning. So having a backpack, if you know that they're not injured, and if you're very confident that they're lost, that can ease that. Now, adding an injury to that, right? That could change things pretty dramatically. So, yeah. Any other things that you think that you might learn from my thing? Because I'm almost done tonight.
The one that you had.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just I think that's what struck me was really take your time. You're not going to rush. Because you could be worried like, okay, well, they're going to send out a search party, but I'm not really lost we're going to be okay. But, you can only do what you can do, which is be safe, take your time, and, don't rush people when they can't rush.
Right. So on that San Gorgonio trip, if they would have sent someone out at 10 o'clock and I was still up the trail, this is what they would have seen. They would have seen two hikers coming very slow down the trail. And they would have said, do you want to get in the litter, or, do we need a helicopter, or can you keep walking? Like, I can keep walking. Okay, great. And they'll relay the message back and we'll just continue on. That's the worst of it. And I'm sure the search and rescue people would prefer that any day of the week, right? It's like, okay, we mobilized, we came out to the trailhead. I walked for an hour, found the people, and cool, right? That's always going to be a better day than finding somebody that's, fatally injured or worse, right? So we'll just leave it at that.
But that's really awesome. Good that your partner is going to execute the plan. That's big because you don't want them second guessing themselves.
Right. And I think that's probably the other takeaway, right? Is having that good discussion with your partner, that your non-hiking partner or the person that's not on the trip, right? It doesn't even, maybe they're a hiking partner, they're just not on the trip, to have that good discussions like, this is what I want you to do if this happens. And that's exactly what my wife did. She reacted and like, perfect. Thanks very much. So,
yeah.
So as we move forward with this, and I was asking people for some other stories, and I think some people, I don't know if they're hesitant or they don't have stories, but some of your stories that other people, some of my friends might want to share, they don't have to be big dramatic ones. It's like, we thought somebody was dead, or someone sprained their ankle, or someone, lost a pint of blood and we had to do this, or, medevac. It could be, I left a critical piece of gear, or a bear carried away my backpack, and here's how I finished the trip, right? That could be, shit went wrong and what'd you learn? So I love, these horror stories are great to share, but also, what's the takeaway points? So awesome. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for sharing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it.
So next week, I'm going to be talking about gear. When you come back from a trip, what do you do? What do you do with your gear? So how do you deal with your gear? I've got a pretty systematic approach to how I deal with my gear. I just came back from a trip. It's like I had the different piles and the different strategies I have for dealing with my gear, and then also a little bit of gear storage. So I'm going to share my stuff on how I deal with that one. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about Leave No Trace. So that's kind of what's coming up the next couple of weeks.
Great.
Yeah. Hey, it was great seeing y'all. Thanks so much. We will see you next week, or see you on YouTube. Thanks, Mike.